The Battle of Badr. This was not just a battle between two armies, it was the first great confrontation between truth and falsehood. On one side stood the powerful army of the Quraysh, and on the other, the small but courageous group of Muslims. This battle changed the course of Islamic history. The Quraysh of Makkah devised a plan to eliminate the growing influence of the Muslims. They marched with a grand army toward Badr. Meanwhile, Prophet Muhammad consulted his companions. Both the Muhajirun and the Ansar pledged their loyalty and said, "We are with you, no matter what may come." The night before the battle was a test of faith for the Muslims. The Prophet fell into prostration, earnestly praying to Allah, "O Allah, if this small group is destroyed today, there will be none left on earth to call upon your name." Allah accepted the Prophet's prayer and gave him glad tidings of victory. On the battlefield of Badr, the two armies faced each other. The renowned warriors of Quraysh stepped forward. From the Muslim side, Ar-Raheeq Al-Makhtum, Hamza Ar-Raheeq and Ubaidah Ar-Raheeq emerged to face them. They struck down the enemy champions, igniting the spirit of the Muslim fighters. As the battle reached its peak, Allah sent angels to assist the believers. The companions saw figures in white garments, fighting alongside them. The enemy ranks broke. Their leaders were slain, and the Muslims emerged victorious. The Quraysh suffered a crushing defeat at Badr. Many of their leaders were killed, and the rest fled. After the battle, the Muslims treated the captives with unmatched kindness. Some were freed in exchange for ransom, while others earned their freedom by educating the Muslim community. The victory at Badr strengthened the Muslims, but the Quraysh saw it as a grave humiliation. They began plotting revenge, and soon another great battle would unfold. The defeat at Badr was unbearable for the Quraysh. Burning with the fire of revenge, they resolved to crush the Muslims. Abu Sufyan and other leaders prepared a massive army and began marching toward Uhud. Meanwhile, in Medina, the Muslims were alert and prepared. A great test was drawing near. In Medina, the Prophet consulted his companions. Should the battle be fought inside the city or in the open field? The younger companions expressed their desire to fight in open ground, and the Prophet accepted their opinion. The battlefield of Uhud was chosen, and skilled archers were stationed on a strategic hill to guard the rear. The battle began, and the Muslims displayed extraordinary bravery. Hamza Ar-Raheeq Ali Ar-Raheeq and other companions struck down some of the most powerful warriors of the Quraysh. Their army began to retreat, and victory seemed within reach. But the trial was not over yet. As the Quraysh began to flee, some Muslims started gathering spoils of war. Despite the Prophet's clear instructions, the archers stationed on the hill abandoned their post, thinking the battle was over. Khalid ibn al-Walid, who was still fighting with the Quraysh at the time, seized the opportunity and launched a surprise attack from behind. This sudden attack caused chaos among the Muslims. Many companions were martyred, and even the Prophet was wounded. A false rumor spread that the Prophet had been killed. It was a moment of immense trial, but the Prophet was alive and stood firm, a beacon of patience and perseverance. The Muslims suffered great losses in this battle, including the martyrdom of Hamza Ar-Raheeq. Though the Quraysh failed to achieve a decisive victory, they inflicted heavy damage and then retreated. For the Muslims, this was a painful trial, but it became a lasting lesson in obedience, discipline, and faith. After the Battle of Uhud, a somber silence settled over Medina. The wounds were fresh, and the hearts of Muslims were heavy with grief. The loss of beloved companions and family members had shaken the city, yet the spirit of the Muslims remained unbroken. The Prophet, despite being wounded himself, stood firm among his companions. Meanwhile, the Quraysh entertained thoughts of returning to strike again. hoping to extinguish the light of Islam once and for all. Hearing of these threats, the Prophet did not allow fear or weakness to spread among the people. Without delay, and still bearing the pain of recent wounds, he called upon the believers to rise once more. He led them out of Medina, determined to show the Quraysh that Muslims were not defeated. Their faith, their unity, and their courage had not been lost at Uhud. At Hamra al-Assad, a place near Medina, the Muslims encamped. Their mere presence, their willingness to stand again so soon, sent a powerful message. The Quraysh, expecting weakness, were stunned by this resolve. Fearing another confrontation with such determined fighters, they turned back to Makkah. The Muslims, though fewer in number and recently wounded, had turned back an army with the strength of their spirit alone. Back in Medina, life slowly returned to a rhythm. But the pain of Uhud remained a deep memory. Yet that pain became a source of strength. The Prophet reminded the Muslims of the lessons learned, of discipline, obedience, and the value of patience. Families who had lost their loved ones displayed remarkable perseverance, and the community grew more united and resilient than before. But the trials were not over. Some of the Jewish tribes in Medina, who had agreed to peace, began plotting in secret. Their betrayal posed an internal threat, one that could be far more dangerous than an open enemy. The Prophet, with wisdom and justice, confronted these conspiracies firmly. Through strategic decisions and decisive actions, he protected the unity of Medina and ensured that the enemies within could not weaken the Muslim front. This phase after Uhud was not just a time of healing, it was a time of testing, reflection, and growth. The Muslims, tested by loss and threatened by new dangers, emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined. They had tasted both defeat and perseverance, and now they were ready for the future battles with renewed faith. The skies above Medina once again signaled danger. The Quraysh, still burning with vengeance after their setback at Uhud, were preparing for a decisive strike. But this time they weren't coming alone. 10,000 strong, an alliance of Quraysh, the Ghatafan tribes, treacherous Jewish factions, and various Arab confederates marched with a single goal: to wipe out the Muslims and extinguish the light of Islam. Inside Medina, fear loomed, but panic did not. The Muslims knew they were facing the largest military threat of their time. The Prophet Muhammad, with calm resolve and divine insight, gathered his companions. In that circle of consultation, voices rose, opinions were shared, and then a new idea emerged, one that would change the course of the battle. Salman al-Farsi, a noble companion with experience in Persian warfare, stepped forward. "O Messenger of Allah," he said, "in my land, when we feared a siege, we would dig a trench around our city to block the enemy's advance." The Prophet listened attentively and accepted the idea with wisdom. A decision was made. The Muslims, though small in number, would rely on intelligence and hard work rather than sheer strength. They began digging a trench on the vulnerable side of the city where cavalry could most easily enter. The task was monumental. The cold winds of Medina bit into their skin, hunger gnawed at their stomachs, and yet the companions labored with hearts full of faith. Stones were shattered with their bare hands, and the Prophet himself picked up the tools, digging beside his followers. Dust covered his blessed face, and sweat trickled from their brows. And when fatigue crept in, he recited, "O Allah, there is no life except the life of the hereafter, so forgive the emigrants and the helpers." This was not just a trench, it was a wall of unity, a defense made from trust in Allah and the determination of believers. When the coalition army finally arrived and beheld the trench, they were stunned. They had never seen such a tactic in Arabian warfare. Horses halted, generals frowned, plans collapsed. The Quraysh, confident in their numbers, suddenly found themselves halted by a strategy they didn't anticipate. They tried to breach it, to find weaknesses, to scale it, but time after time, they were met with resistance. Muslim archers guarded every pass. Watchful eyes never rested. The siege dragged on. Days turned into weeks. Food supplies in Madinah ran low. The children cried from hunger. The nights grew colder. From across the trench, taunts and threats echoed. The hypocrites among the Muslims began to whisper fear. "Look at us," they said. "We were promised victory, but here we are, starving, surrounded, and hopeless." But the true believers stood tall. Their resolve did not crack. They knew their Lord was watching. The prophet moved among his people, offering words of courage. He reminded them of the promises of Allah, of patience, of the victories of the past, and the reward that awaited the faithful. And then at the peak of this crisis, Allah sent his help. A powerful wind arose, lashing through the enemy's camps. Their fires extinguished, their tents collapsed, their animals fled. Confusion spread, morale shattered. The very earth seemed to rise against them. In fear and chaos, the vast coalition began to withdraw. Not a full-scale battle had occurred. No major combat was fought, yet the enemy left defeated. Why? Because this was not just a military encounter. It was a test of patience, wisdom, and unwavering faith. This was the Battle of the Trench. A battle not of swords and shields alone, but of vision, strategy, and steadfastness. It showed the world that true strength lies not in numbers, but in unity. In leadership and in belief. And for the Muslims, it became a sign that Allah's help comes to those who endure, who strive, and who place their trust in Him alone. The air of Medina was calm, but in the hearts of the believers, a new determination was rising. The Muslims were facing yet another serious challenge, the stronghold of Khaybar. It was a land fortified with massive castles, weapon stockpiles, and enemies who had long plotted against Islam. This was a moment where truth would be tested and the power of faith would shine. Khaybar, located north of Medina, was home to large Jewish communities who had become open adversaries. They were the same forces that had incited conflict during the Battle of the Trench and tried to crush the Muslims through alliances with the Quraysh. Now their hostility had reached its peak, and their strong fortresses stood as barriers against peace and justice. The Prophet Muhammad, with wisdom and foresight, made a decisive move. He gathered his companions, consulted with them, and placed full trust in the help of Allah. A well-organized army was prepared not with pride or arrogance, but with hearts full of trust and tongues immersed in remembrance. Each step was taken with calm strategy and divine direction. As the Muslims approached Khaybar, the enemies locked their fortress gates, confident that no army could break through. But the Muslims knew this would not be a battle of swords alone. It was a test of patience, faith, and strategy. One by one, they laid siege to the fortresses. Days turned into nights, but the believers remained steadfast. Hunger, exhaustion, and difficulty did not break their resolve. It was at this moment that the prophet made a powerful declaration. "Tomorrow I shall give the banner to a man who loves Allah and his messenger, and Allah and his messenger love him. Through him, Allah will grant us victory." That night, every companion hoped to be the one. But the next morning, the Prophet called upon Ali ibn Abi Talib. At that time, Ali's eyes were sore. The Prophet placed his blessed saliva on his eyes, and instantly Ali's vision was restored. Then the Prophet handed him the banner of Khaybar, the banner of victory. Ali ibn Abi Talib advanced with strength and conviction. As he approached the fortress, the enemies underestimated his might. But what followed was a moment of pure courage. With firm faith and unmatched bravery, Ali broke through the defenses, opening the gates of the fortress to the Muslim army. The sounds of battle echoed, but in that noise was the rhythm of triumph. The fortress of Khaybar fell. One by one, the mighty walls crumbled. The Muslims, under the leadership of the Prophet and the bravery of Ali, achieved a historic victory. It was not just a military success, it was a victory of belief over arrogance, of strategy over force, of divine support over worldly strength. After the conquest, the Muslims treated the defeated with fairness and justice. The Prophet established agreements that ensured peace and order. This victory sent a strong message throughout the Arabian Peninsula. The Muslims were now a rising force, not only militarily, but morally and politically as well. The victory at Khaybar taught a timeless lesson. The true success is not achieved through numbers or weapons alone, but through faith, unity, wisdom, and trust in Allah. The bravery of Ali, the leadership of the Prophet, and the patience of the believers all came together to write one of the most powerful chapters in Islamic history. This was not just a celebration of land conquered, but a celebration of faith that conquered fear, of wisdom that overpowered strategy, and of a people who knew that with Allah on their side, no fortress was too strong and no enemy too great